419 Patriots, and welcome to the M44 Patriot channel, your source for citizen soldier skills and budget preparedness. Today, we'll be talking about individual fighter missions and considerations for those missions. Individual operators are inherently disadvantaged. It's one guy against, say, a squad. 1 versus 8 is a mathematical disadvantage to the 1. But they are able to do some limited missions. They can scout, they can do harassment and interdiction. They can set up listening posts and observation posts. They can be snipers, and they can place mines and traps and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about each one a little bit, but each of these is going to get its own separate video later. So scouting, we'll do that first. Scouting, the purpose of a scout is to get information on enemy positions, capabilities. Every once in a while, you run across a little stream or something, especially the ones that are made by routine snowmelt, and they can mark those, and then it's known that, hey, there's water here, so if we need to resupply our water, we know that there's water here. Or maybe an old hunting rifle goes, if it's a semi-auto rifle of some kind, honestly, as much as you can carry, but don't go overboard. You're not going out to specifically hunt down and eliminate a huge platoon. You're going out to obtain information. So your weapon is probably going to be used to defend yourself against an attacking force, if you get compromised. So, like, if you're carrying a semi-auto battle rifle like a HK-91, 2 magazines plus 1 on the weapon is fine. An SKS, probably 6 clips, which is that's 60 rounds plus 10 in the rifle. That's fine. A Mosin or a Mauser or something, 35, 40 rounds. For the most part, you really don't need to go over about 100 rounds of additional ammo. Additional being whatever's in addition to whatever's in your weapon. So if your weapon has a 10-round magazine, that doesn't count towards your round count. But if your rifle if you got an AK, 2 or 3 magazines, you'll be fine. You're not going out against. You're not meant to be going out against 10 people and expecting to win. You're using your weapon to run from the 10 guys, because otherwise he will kill you. Scouts also need a map, a very detailed map, as detailed as possible. Compass, preferably a military lensatic compass, the ones with the tritium dial, because they glow in the dark and do not need to be charged like phosphorus does. But even just a basic map compass would be fine. Mapping tools in general, like Map Protractor, a laminated copy of the key for your map, whether it's just your map or any symbols that you guys use on the mapping in addition to the map symbols. Some other stuff, bare minimum survival equipment to spend anywhere between 1 and 7 days in the field. The less the better. You're going out there, you're going to obtain information, but there's probably supplies and materials and stuff out there, especially if you have some caches located that you can resupply from, or other stuff. Camouflaging equipment, just a way to hide yourself so that it's harder for the enemy to find you. Binoculars, so that you can look from far away and watch, say, maybe enemy forces moving, like a company of reinforcements down a road. Well, you're going to want binoculars so you can sit like 300 yards away and watch them move that force, instead of having to sit 15, 20 yards away so that you can actually see what's going on. Or sometimes binoculars can have, or monoculars can have a reticle put in them so that you can actually use it to judge distances and do other work with the glass. I wouldn't go out and dump a bunch of extra money on one, but if I were getting a pair of binoculars and it happened to have one, cool, it makes me more effective. So grease pencils are awesome too, because they can take a laminated map, take your grease pencil, make markings on the map, and then take it back to your camp or to your base or to wherever, and transfer those markings over just by looking at them. And the grease pencils will help it to stay. Um, Other mission essential equipment, anything you might need if you're going out and you're going out specifically to find water sources that are to test water sources for friendly forces. You might want to take out a radiology meter, and so you can measure if there's maybe radioactive material in the stream, or check for toxins like acid mine drainage stuff and things like that. Testing equipment of some kind to be able to analyze the water. That's unless I was going out specifically to find that stuff, I probably would not carry it just in case. But I mean, some of those sensors and stuff are fairly light and don't require much of anything, and you could tuck a few in a butt pack or in a rucksack, and off you go. And you've at least got some sensors, so if you find some water, you can test it and use the sensors to gather data on it, and then you would have maybe a team or a couple of people that were just really smart that knew how to read the readings and would be able to mark that, hey, this stream has high amounts of radiation in it. Don't drink it, because a water filter is not going to remove radiation, most likely. I would not drink irradiated water if I could help it. Some variants on this theme would be like an urban scout, a wilderness scout, scout sniper, stuff like that. Urban scouts would be focused on blending in, the gray man. That, there's an enemy checkpoint over in this area because they're using this as a headquarters. So I happen to walk by there every day on my way to work, so I'm going to go and, check it out and know and get some info on that position while I'm on my way to my job or on my way home or I'm walking to the grocery store or whatever. The goal there is to not draw attention to yourself, but to gather the information and later be able to note it so that it can be passed up to whoever it needs to go to. There's a difference between information and intelligence. Information is raw data. It is, there are 6 guys at this checkpoint, and they do a guard shift change every 15 minutes. And then that gets passed up to the intelligence analysts, who sit down and look at it and go, okay, well, we know this information, and we pair it with this other information that our other scouts have given us, and this becomes intelligence that can then be disseminated to personnel who need it. And that would even work within an intelligence cell of an auxiliary, where you just have someone that walks by and they pass the information up to the intelligence auxiliary cell, and the auxiliary looks at it and goes, okay, well, clearly they're expecting something, or there's some sort of high-value target there because they're doing guard shift change every 15 minutes. Urban scouts, they're very necessary for surveying enemy positions in built-up areas. You, like it or not, you cannot camo your face up and put all this battle rattle and walk down town, especially during an occupation, and expect not to attract attention. Whereas an urban scout who's maybe wearing an old jean coat with maybe a submachine gun tucked up underneath, or a handgun concealed somewhere or something as a defensive firearm, and then he walks by and he doesn't attract attention to himself, so the enemy knows that, hey, he's, the enemy doesn't know that he's in there doing anything. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. Wilderness scouts are focused more on scouting through non-urban areas, whether that's plains or in an Arctic area, if you're up in Alaska or something, through the woods, whatever. Really doesn't, the term wilderness scout does not specifically mean any specific terrain, just means non-urban. They're specialized in that they may have to stay in a, I'm sorry, that's scout snipers. I'm reading off with some notes here. Some individual considerations should be made based on their primary AO, but for the most part, they are out there obtaining information and then passing it back to the auxiliary intelligence cells to become intelligence, and should be set up to operate effectively within their AO. Scout snipers are snipers, which we'll talk about that later, who specialize in information gathering. They're very specialized. They have to stay in like a hidden spot for extended periods of time without being found, and they have to be able to just stay there. That is not something that the average person has the patience to do. So I would recommend, if you think you might want to do sniping or scout sniping, go out and find a hidden camouflage position on a hill somewhere overlooking a road and sit there for 6 hours and write down the license plates of every car that drives by you, going, maybe going one direction or going either direction, whatever. If you can't do that, you probably don't have what you need to be a scout sniper or a sniper in general, really. H&I is harassment and interdiction. Harassment and interdiction is meant as, among other things, it's an anti-morale tool. The idea is that one, maybe two guys can go out and they pop off a few rounds at the enemy, keep the enemy on their toes, maybe, nervous, anxious because they're on that guard post. They've been there for, 8 or 9 hours. They just want to go home. Meanwhile, someone comes out and they start shooting at them and then runs away. And it's like, what the shit? What the hell was that? And then they start, and that paranoia sets in and they get jumpy. And that can be a very real psychological weapon against an aggressor. You can also use it to possibly eliminate one or two guys. This is not meant to be decisive in any way. You're not going out to produce casualties. You're going out to scare the shit out of the enemy. This is a psychological tactic, for the most part. You might generate some casualties, but if you do, they're probably going to be limited. A wounded or dead guy is going to produce a significant psychological impact on the enemy. But that's not the primary goal. You're not trying to kill the enemy. You're trying to screw with his head. H&I operations should be conducted by no more than probably 3 individual fighters at different points at any given time, and they should not last long. A minute tops. That's pushing it. It could be as simple as driving past a known enemy checkpoint into a known enemy stronghold and firing a few rounds from a handgun through your driver's side window at the soldiers that are running it, or possibly a fighter with an old bolt-action hunting rifle or something, taking a pot shot. He just kind of hopped out of his car, and he saw the sentry over there, and he's just going to take a shot or two, and then he's going to hop back in his car and drive away. This is absolutely not meant to be a defensive fighting strategy, decisive fighting strategy. You only use it to supplement other types of operations and fighting. H&I was used to great effect, especially with artillery, by the Viet Cong during Vietnam. They didn't use artillery necessarily. They had mortars and stuff, but for the most part, they didn't have like big cannons or anything. But a lot of times, they would just drop a few mortar rounds or a couple of sniper shots at a fire base, and would make it so that fire base maybe was afraid to send out a vehicle or two in case of an ambush or something like that. LPOPs, listening posts, and observation posts. Listening posts can be set up. Well, both can be set up by an individual operator with a pair of binoculars for an observation post, watching a known area where enemy personnel may or are known to be operating, or with electronic equipment for a listening post to listen for and or jam enemy radio traffic or electronic signals. Individual operators would go out, set up a position and their equipment in a good spot, and just kind of hang out for a day or two, and then leave. It works way better if there's more than one person, because you can have someone awake and someone sleeping and then someone guarding the whole time. Or, even a few more. I would not put more than probably 4 guys on an LPOP. Uh, 4 would be pushing it. Um, and even with a single person, though, it can be an effective way to monitor and interfere with enemy operations. If they can't communicate, they can't with electronics, and it diminishes their fight capabilities. And if you don't establish patterns, it makes it easier to be effective because these guys will go out and they don't know because it's not a regular thing, so they can't plan around. Well, we know that they have an LPOP active during these hours at this spot. They might not. I have no idea, and that adds psychological impact to the enemy. Snipers are the most over fantasized and misunderstood type of job. Snipers do 4 things. They obtain information, they eliminate HVTs, high value targets, they fix units of soldiers in place, and they support advancing infantry and units. Obtaining information is pretty straightforward. It can be done by a single sniper with a basic carbine because they're most likely not going to be taking any shots unless they're breaking contact and trying to beat feet out of there. They should have a magnified optic, preferably variable, something with a 1 to 4 or maybe an offset dot sight so that they can fight effectively, and then have that variable power so that they can look at range. Either that or a pair of binoculars would be fine too. And they would set up on like a road or an avenue or some kind and monitor traffic, whether that's enemy traffic, whatever. And that to try and get information for resistance, underground personnel, guerrilla teams, on enemy resupply, reinforcements that they might be receiving, enemy weapons, capabilities. And they'd be taking notes on all of this, and they'd send it all back to the higher ups to be worked with. Eliminating HVTs is exactly what it sounds like. Operator goes out to take down target of some kind of importance, whether it's an enemy officer or NCO, or just someone important that needs to be taken out for the fight to be effective. Fixing units in place is much more difficult than it sounds like. But a skilled sniper or two could easily fix a platoon or a company, a size unit, or even bigger, in a position that it would be not able to move from it, possibly with the intention of bringing in heavy weapons like mortars, artillery, anti-tank weapons that you could maybe just shoot as anti-personnel weapons, and otherwise make them ineffective and a drain on the enemy's resources. Any kind of strain on the enemy's resources and support system is going to make it harder for them to fight. And if it's harder for them to fight, it's easier for you to fight and take advantage of weak points in an enemy's line somewhere. Supporting advancing infantry or units of some kind is pretty straightforward. A group of fighters or other unit is advancing on an objective. Having a distance sharpshooter or a sniper that can take out enemy forces from far away. Like maybe you've got a squad who's advancing and they've been pinned down by a machine gun team. Well, your sniper who is supporting them can maybe locate that machine gun team and take them out, and then your squad is able to advance, or team, whatever. They also can place mines and booby traps and stuff like that. It's probably one of the most useful jobs. You just take a bag, fill it full of mines and components for mines and stuff like that, or booby traps. Send them out into the bush and have them place them around. Have them mark it on the map where they're at and place them, whether it's even like on a road or some sort of known area that the enemy is moving. They can deal a lot of damage against an enemy, both morale and reducing numbers, and put strain on the support system, which again is extremely useful. A trap layer could also have the important task of setting up traps to gather food or other supplies that might be needed, which can be saved, preserved, cooked, preserved, whatever, and used to help augment the supply for an isolated team or squad of whether it's underground personnel or guerrillas. All right, so I'm going to start trying to wrap this up. So any kind of real role that an individual can do, a lot of times two or more people can probably do better. There are very few things that are best done by a single person. Even if you have a second person, just to watch your back, your blind spot, while you're doing the task, makes you more effective. However, I mean, even if a guy went out and he just kind of sat on a road and he watched a patrol walk by and he threw a couple of grenades at them and then ran away as fast as he could. I mean, that would be an example of an H&I operation. I mean, 2 grenades thrown at a squad, especially if it's bunched up a little bit or, in a way, set up in a way that it's probably not going to be able to maximize, or that it's going to be able to minimize the damage that a blast like that would do. I mean, throwing a couple of grenades out and then running away would possibly take out that whole squad or fire team. I mean, the average kill radius of a fragmentation grenade, an M67 fragmentation grenade, is about 10 meters out and up. So, but I mean, some of those pieces can still be very, very painful if you get hit by them, even far apart. So if you maybe manage to get the middle guy in a fire team wedge, the front guy in the fire team wedge, you might possibly wound 2 others if you got really lucky. And throwing a second grenade even further maximizes, or it increases the possibility that you might even take out more and then run away, or throwing having someone run up with a big bottle of thermite or something and then having them ignite it and then running over top of say a Humvee engine, take out the Humvee. Now the enemy has Humvees are expensive. So now the enemy has to take money and go buy another Humvee and replace that Humvee that you just destroyed the engine of with the thermite. So, I mean, a lot of this can be very, very effective if it's used properly. Now, I do want to say, the information that's in here is meant to help those who are fighting illegally against anyone. This is my legal disclaimer. If someone takes the information that I just stated and uses it for illicit purposes, it is not my fault. I am trying to help individual militia personnel here in the U.S., as well as those of us who are otherwise engaged in patriotic activities. We're trying to avoid any kind of real war against the government or anything like that. This is just meant as for entertainment purposes only. So I hope you found this useful. As always, if you found this video helpful, please like the video, comment with your thoughts on what individual operators can do during guerrilla warfare operations, and subscribe to the channel. Also, please like our Facebook page. There's a link in the description below where you can get updates on things as we work on them over time. So, I think that's everything. Each of these, like I said, is going to get a separate video. So I will go over a lot of these in depth later. So I think that's it. So be safe and watch your 6.